Thank you for your invitation. I'm afraid I have to talk from far away. I will be in Athens during the day of the conference. I will start by saying that Greece at this moment is at a crossroad. We need desperately to move forward with reform and to change the economic policy that is applied today in the country. And this can only happen through political means, through the emergence of reform political forces in the next Greek electoral cycle, which starts this May. What is the problem today in Greece? The problem is that apart from the huge debt and the deficits which have not yet been resolved, our major problem is a problem of production. The Greek economy is not producing, and it's not producing especially in the international traded goods and services. And unless we can hugely increase our production capacity and our people that are working into production, we cannot get out of this crisis. I'll give you some numbers to be able to understand how big the problem is. Today we have close to 3 million people that are pensioners. 2.8, 2.9 million people pensioners. We have 1.4 million people that are unemployed, and we have something like 800,000 public employees, everything included, from generals to public employees to priests. And we only have 2.8 million people employed in any way in the private sector, either self-employed or businessmen or employees. Now, how can it be possible, 2.8 million people, to provide, to produce enough for 3 million pensioners, 1.4 million unemployed, and 800,000 public workers? It cannot be done. So we need a huge transfer of resources from the state to the private sector and from the consuming introvert part of the economy to the producing extrovert part of the economy. And this is not happening because the current government, the current policies are stifling, are strangling the private sector, are preventing investment, are overtaxing those that are already taxed and not taxing the tax evaders. And this failure of policy prevents the economy from restarting, while in terms of competitiveness, at least in wages, it has gone down incredibly. So it should have been able to start producing if there was the proper economic policy. What also stops us is that the state remains as it was, a bit smaller, but as it was. It remains corrupt in many sectors, especially in the tax collection sector. It remains hugely bureaucratic, and it remains captive to the clientelistic interests of the governing parties, who use the state as a way to remain in power, putting their party people in public appointments, not on merit, but on the ability to do party clientelistic behavior. This is the real problem of Greece. Of course, we also need to have a deal about the debt and everything else towards our foreign the people that gave us the loans, the foreign states, the European states mainly. But this is not the core of the issue. The core of the issue is a change of the country itself. And this can only happen through pro-reform forces entering hugely into the political scene. At this moment, the government is anti-reform. It's trying to do the least possible reform to keep the existing system as much as possible intact. And the main opposition is against reform because it believes in the bigger state and magical solutions. We believe δράση in pro-reform policies, and we are going to try to build a pro-reform coalition for these elections in the European Parliament and in the next national elections that can move the Greek political spectrum towards reform, towards lesser state, less taxes, and towards more resources to the productive private sector. This is our main effort, and we are going to do everything in our power to do that, because we believe that if this government stays and keeps the course, there is no solution to the Greek problem. And if the opposition comes to power, as it now appears possible, then things are going to get worse rather than better. Thank you for your time and kind hospitality.